it's Mo. If you've watched this channel for a while, you might know that I don't do things like give star ratings, that my brain just doesn't really think that way. I do like to kind of rank things though, and I have done that on my Cat Cozy Mysteries and a couple of other videos where I have like casually ranked a few things, like just in my enjoyment of what I liked and what I didn't like. So that to me is easier than star ratings, than rating things out of 5. So today I wanted to try tier ranking. I've never tier ranked anything, but I set up a whole little tier rank. I recently read my 20th short story from a free subscription that I have. I've been reading these for the last 3 years on audio. I think right after I started BookTube in 2021, so not the year I started BookTube, but the year after I started reading them. I only read one that year, I think, and then the next year is when I really got into reading them. This is a subscription that I pay for that I don't necessarily like that I have, something that I would like to eventually get rid of. But one of the reasons that I do still like it is that it's easy to get these free short stories. They do short stories by all different authors in all different genres. Sometimes they have them in like categories where they've commissioned authors to write all horror or all speculative or all kind of climate adjacent. And then they also do short stories that they commission just as one-offs, or they take short stories that these authors have written and make them into short audio stories. So all the stories here I've read on audio for free. You know, I pay for the subscription, but they come free with a subscription. And I've done them totally randomly. I haven't read all of one collection. I just will pop on there every once in a while and pick a couple, return the ones that I've already read, and then read a new short story. Today I wanted to tier rank all those short stories. So I have a couple of different categories. I couldn't think of any super fun category names to name the tiers of my ranking. So I just went with must read, good stuff, okay, you could skip it, or just no. I've set this all up, but I haven't really thought about where I'm going to put every story. I read 20 stories, so we have 20 to go through. So I have a feeling that the majority are going to fall into good stuff because I have liked the majority of what I've read, and we'll see how many of each fall into different categories. If you've read any of the short stories that I read here, and if you agree with my ranking or you disagree, I would love to know, so please leave me a comment in the comment section below. Now, let's start with the tier ranking. So these are in no particular order. I just pulled the images off of my Goodreads so that I could do it, but I am going to start with the last story that I read, which is The Weddings by Alexander Chee. This is a story about a man and his new boyfriend. Just when gay marriage is becoming legalized in the US, their friends start getting married. So they haven't gone to a lot of weddings. They go to them as a young couple and they start to think about marriage. They start to think about their history, their past, and potentially their future together. I liked this story, but I don't think it was anything too amazing. It did have some drama and it did have some, you know, interesting themes and ideas, certainly, and I loved the gay aspect, of course, but I'm going to put it in okay. Next, we have A Scandal in Brooklyn. I read this a few months ago because I wanted to read another Lauren Wilkinson. I read one other of her books earlier this year, and I wasn't super thrilled with it. This is a reimagining, retelling of Sherlock Holmes where Irene Adler is the detective. It's a closed-door mystery taking place in Brooklyn, but this was definitely a just no for me. I didn't hate it, but it definitely wasn't doing anything new or interesting or exciting, so I would definitely say not only can you skip it, but just no. Next, we have A Righteous Man by Tochi Onyebuchi. This is about a missionary who goes to Africa in the 1800s and what he learns about the culture there. I love this particular story collection's covers. They're really, really beautiful. I think this is the only one that I've read. No, I've read one other from this one. This is definitely a good stuff. It's got horror elements. It has religious elements, it has discussions of slavery, and I really like Tochi Onyebuchi's writing. I also read Riot Baby by them. Next is Half-Light by Tayari Jones. This is the first Tayari Jones I ever read, and it really made me fall in love with her writing. I think this is going to go into a must-read category. And not only is it a great way to get into Tayari Jones, but I think the story is really beautiful. It's about two sisters and kind of taking back their lives. It has queer rep, fun, easy to read. Now we're getting back to ones that I haven't read in a long time. The Contractors by Lisa Ko is about two women who share the same job but in different countries. I like this one because it took place in New Jersey. I'm going to call this one Good Stuff. So it's about content moderators, which I think is kind of hot buzz topic right now for books, but it came out before a lot of the books that people are buzzing about did. I think it was well written, interesting, and had some interesting twists. Another Asian author, this is one of the last stories that I've recently read, is If You Are Lonely and You Know It by Yi Yoon Lee. I wanted to read this one because I was interested to see what Lee's writing was like, and I did enjoy this story. I thought it was a little bit literary. It's about a man who's a little bit aimless in his life. It's about his past and his present and how he sees the world and how he identifies with people. I think it was trying to display a specific message, but I'm not sure if it really came across, and I'm not sure if it really worked. I'm going to put this in the can skip category. Zecora by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is about a young lawyer who gets pregnant, and when she decides to have the baby, her boyfriend leaves her, and it's all told in flashbacks while she's giving birth. So it talks about her relationship with her mother and her relationship with her ex and why she wants to have this baby. Maybe some of the reasons that she wants to have this baby are selfish. Now, I think Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is a controversial writer. She has some controversial opinions, but I've never read anything by her before, and I was interested to read something. This is where this gets tricky. Now, if I'm recommending this, I think probably a lot of people would like this, but if I am just going with my own feelings, this is definitely a just no. I really didn't like the baby talk. I don't think that our main character is particularly likable. Not that you need to have a likable character, certainly, but I just didn't enjoy that one, even though I do think it was extremely well written. So next we have The Sleep Tight Motel by Lisa Unger. One of the reasons that I read these short stories is because it introduces me to all these authors that I've heard of, that I'm interested in, but maybe I don't have a book by, like Ngozi Adichie, or maybe I want a book by, but I haven't found it yet. And Lisa Unger is one of those that I hadn't even really heard of before I read this story, but since then I have picked up Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 because I did like her writing in this. It was a supernatural horror where a young woman is running from her abusive and violent past and finds herself at the Sleep Tight Motel, but there are things going on there that she doesn't really expect. I'm gonna put this in okay because I did really enjoy it, but I don't think it was like the best of these stories that I've read. Next we have Treasure by Okanyan Braithwaite. This is the first Okanyan Braithwaite that I ever read, and it follows a young girl in Lagos, Nigeria. She is a maid in a rich household, but she longs to be a rich, cared for wife and a celebrity. So she has made herself a celebrity influencer presence online, and she kind of uses the rich family's stuff and house to display that she's this rich, you know, beautiful, well cared for woman. And it's about one of her followers who becomes obsessed with her. This story was amazing. I loved it so much. I loved Okanyan Braithwaite's writing. I loved the reader of this story. I'll try to list all the readers down below because some of them were really, really great. And definitely Treasure has to go into a must read. I think if you're interested in Okanyan Braithwaite, if you're interested in that idea, which is also kind of a buzz right now with like Sheena Patel's I'm a Fan, of having a fake persona online and how you display yourself and the possible dangers or repercussions of that. So good. So next we have Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read this one this year. This is an epistolary style novella or short story told in letters between two people whose two spouses are having an affair. I really like this one. Of course, people are obsessed with Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. You don't need me to tell you to read her work, but I am going to put this in just okay, because although I really loved it when I first read it, it's kind of gone out of my memory. Next, we're coming to some of the older books that I've read on here. One is The Visitor by Dodie Smith. The Visitor and a couple of other ones that I've read from this collection of short stories, which is called The One, are all nonfiction stories. They have a little bit probably less like drama and, horror or anything like that, because they are based on true life stories. Now, I remember really liking The Visitor. It's about a long distance relationship, but I can't remember very much of it now at all, so I'm going to put this in the can skip category. Moving on to The Black Pages by Nnedi Okorafor. I've read one other book by Nnedi Okorafor, and The Black Pages is about a young man who's been studying in England. He returns to, it might be Nigeria, but I'm not sure which country in Africa exactly it is. It might be Nigeria. And he discovers that political warring forces have taken over his town. There is a speculative / supernatural element to this story, which is also involved. And as these warring forces destroy the cultural heritage of this town, like the library, as they murder people, they release a supernatural entity, which our young main character comes to be aligned with. So I did really enjoy this one. I think it was a little bit hard to understand, so I think we're going to put that in okay. Although it was good, I think it kind of dropped you right in the middle of the story, and that's going to be very difficult for some people. I do remember aspects of this book very clearly. There's a lot of violence in this book and very sad. I don't know if it gets good enough for good stuff. Next, we have Parsnips in Love by Porochista Kapoor. This is one of those standalone stories, and this was a book that I read last year at the same time that I read another book by an Iranian author. And so I was really excited to read this one. It is about an old man who finds a parsnip in his garden that is in a very compromising looking position. It's a little bit crude, a little bit lewd, a little bit naughty, and he becomes obsessed with this vegetable, and this vegetable changes his life. This was a great one, and I'm definitely going to put it in good stuff. I really liked this one. It was sweet, it was heartwarming, made you think, and was interesting. Next, we have Lila. This is by Naima Coster, and this is from that same nonfiction collection of stories. This is about two friends and has a queer aspect. Although I read this in 2021 and I don't remember very much of it, I remember this being my favorite out of that collection that I've read, so I'm going to put it in good stuff. I think that this one was just a more interesting read, although I do remember that Naima Costa read this one and the reading wasn't as good as The Visitor. Next, we have the first of these stories that I read, which is Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin. This one was great. It's about a distant future where Earth has been abandoned because humanity destroyed it, or at least that's what people are telling you. So when an entity goes back with AI to kind of find and acquire resources, they start to question why society has abandoned Earth. It's very much a story of becoming who you are, not trusting government, not trusting authority, not letting them tell you who to be. Definitely a must read. The Last Conversation by Paul Tremblay. This was in the same collection as Emergency Skin, but I read The Last Conversation this year. I liked this one a lot. It's about a future time when there's been a large plague and we as the main character wake up not knowing who we are, not knowing what happened, and we soon realize that the doctor caring for us is not telling us everything and also has a connection to us that we are not sure of. Now, I did like this one, but I don't think it was doing anything like too amazing, so I don't know. This is one that I would either put in good stuff or I would put in okay. I think I'm gonna put it in good stuff. Another short story that I read this year, and a collection that I haven't read any other of yet, is Will Williams by Namwali Serpell. I was interested to read this one because I'm interested in Namwali Serpell's writing and some of the other books that she's come out with recently. Will Williams is a retelling of a classic story, but I don't know that classic story, so I can't really judge whether it's good on that or not. It is a horror about a man's insecurities catching up with him, or are these insecurities actually something out to get him? I'm gonna put this one in okay. I did like it. I think I would probably like it more if I had known that other story. Next, we have the last of the nonfiction. I read those all in the same year, and I never went back to read the other two books in the collection. Generally, in this subscription, there's 5 or 6 books in a collection, sometimes more. This one was A Wedding Thing by Shea Serrano with Larami Serrano. And this one was interesting because it was told by the husband and wife team, and it was about the man's perspective. I honestly don't remember anything about this other than that. I don't remember any emotion that I felt or any particular like or dislike, so I'm going to say this is a just no. Next, I wanted to try The Candles Are Burning by Veronica G. Henry. I wanted to try a Veronica G. Henry because she does have a book set in New Orleans that I'm interested in, but this one really didn't work for me. It was supernatural. It's about a woman who loses her husband, what she will do to protect her child, and maybe she has some special abilities that can help her or hinder her there. But I'm going to say this is a Ken skip. I don't think it was doing anything particularly amazing. It was set in Savannah, Georgia, which I enjoy. If you really are into that kind of thing, try it out, of course. All of these, that goes for all of these, but in my opinion, it's a Ken skip. And then finally, our 20th short story is one that I read this year. It's called The Backbone of the World by Stephen Graham Jones, and I love Stephen Graham Jones. This was the 3rd book that I read by him that cemented him as a favorite author of mine. This is about a woman living on a reservation who is not in contact with her husband, and she's worried that prairie dogs have encroached on the family property, and she does not want her in-laws thinking that her husband did not take care of their property, so she wages a war on these prairie dogs. Now, there's a lot more to it than that. This is definitely a horror book. It has some time travel, it has some cosmic style horror, it has some graphic depictions, it has some body horror, it has death of children. It was so good. It was so amazing. It's definitely going in the must read. So these are a lot more spread out than I thought they were going to be. That was all 20 books that I read from this particular subscription. I think I feel good about this ranking and how this works. I think we'll definitely keep this, and maybe when I read another 20, it took me 3 years to read the first 20, but maybe when I read another 20, we will rank those as well. Maybe we'll have to move things around in the ranking, but my must-read list from these short stories are Half-Light by Tyree Jones, Treasure by O'Kanyon Braithwaite, Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin, and The Backbone of the World by Stephen Graham Jones. There were a lot of other ones that I really liked, and I wouldn't say that any of these books were not worth reading. They were all really good, so if you are interested and you have that subscription, I would definitely give it a try. So that's my first ever tier ranking. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you've read any of these stories and if you agree or disagree, and thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!